Welcome to In Your Business. I'm your host, Reeves Kurtner. Season 2 of In Your Business is presented by Moses Auto Mall of Huntington. Online at mosesmeansmore.com and powered by the Huntington Regional Chamber of Commerce and Kindred Communications. This week, we have a really special episode. There are so many great things and positive things happening in and around Huntington. Nucor, the new baseball stadium, the Tri-State Coal Cats, and all the amazing things happening at Marshall, and now the Huntington Children's Museum. In this episode, we sit down with Tosha Pelfrey, president of the Huntington Children's Museum, which is gearing up for its official grand opening this summer, the summer of 2024. Tosha shares with us how this incredible project started as just an idea and how it got to its impending grand opening. We discuss the inception, the formation of the board, fundraising efforts, location selection, goals, vision for the future, and so much more. Let's get in your business. Let's get started, Tosha, with your background and talk about your background and then how you became involved with the Huntington Children's Museum.
Sure. So I was a teacher for about a decade. My husband and I moved back home when he was presented with a job opportunity. My son was 4 months old when we moved, so I decided to stay home with him. And I then had another child, my daughter Leela, and I've been home with them for years. About 3.5 years ago, we got together with a group of volunteers. Said, hey, we really need more family-friendly indoor spaces here.
Sure.
Everyone agreed. Somebody said, well, we're all like-minded, so we think that, but what about everybody else? So, we put out a survey, and over 1,500 people responded to that survey. And 99% of those people said, yes, we do need more family-friendly indoor spaces.
Sure.
So we moved forward with our project to create an indoor children's museum focused on learning through play and STEAM learning opportunities. We formed a board, a 501c3 nonprofit, and just kept moving forward from there. So, basically I was a dreamer who, saw this happening in other communities, and I helped bring people together. And we've had so much help and support to bring the project to where it is today.
So you got the conversation started?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes, I did.
And when you said that you got a group of like-minded people, you don't have to say names per se, but like what friends, social circles, who are these people, and how was that first meeting? I want to start from the beginning of all this and how it all got started.
Sure. So this was during the middle of the pandemic, so this is all on Zoom. So some of these people were people we knew very well, while others were just acquaintances. We kind of shared it on social media, and so we had a hodgepodge of people show up. Yeah.
And what were those Zoom meetings like?
A lot of ideas, very little structure.
Okay.
But excitement and big dreams, and a lot of people, we can do this.
Okay. So you said that the idea was we need more indoor spaces, for Huntington, for families and so forth. From that, where did the idea of going? Okay, it needs to be a children's museum.
Sure. So a lot of us were educators, or we have small children, so we've maybe lived in other places. On social media, there are a lot of places in Appalachia that have recently started children's museums. So there's one in Athens, Hocking Hills, Portsmouth, Chillicothe.
Yeah.
And so a lot of us have went to these places, and they're wonderful. They're great community assets, and that's really what we wanted to bring to our area. We believe that children learn the best through play and hands-on learning. So we've created a space where the audience is children. They're not an afterthought. They're not one group of people we're trying to focus on. They're our entire focus. So
Sure.
When you come into Huntington Children's Museum, children will be able to be loud and make messes and create and build and ask a million questions, and we're going to encourage it.
Sure. So you mentioned go to Athens, Portsmouth, et cetera, and you were like, well, if they have one, we should have one here. Why don't we have one here?
Correct.
Why haven't we had one here?
It's a lot of work.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Sure. So talk about the timeline. All right. We zoomed. We said these other areas have a children's museum. Why don't we? Then what? What were the next steps?
Sure. So we went through and we contacted several of the children's museums, and asked if we could speak to their directors, the boards that helped get their museum started, to see if we could figure out what they did. And so we just consulted with a lot of people from this area. We went through different Facebook groups that have support groups for emerging children's museums, and we took a lot of ideas. We decided what we wanted to move forward with. We decided that we needed to form a really strong board, a group of people who would be, who are well known and well trusted in our community. So we did that, and then we launched a campaign called the Founding 150 campaign, where the first 150 businesses, organizations, or groups to donate a minimum of $1,000 will forever be acknowledged in our museum. And with that funding, what we did is we used it to apply for grants showing that support, and we were fortunate enough to receive a grant from Lowe's, the $288,000 grant,
Sure.
to help repair a building that we purchased on the West End.
Okay.
So we've been really, really fortunate. The community support we've had in terms of donations and volunteerism has really helped us when applying for some of these larger grants.
So getting the board together, starting some fundraising, what were some of the early challenges that the board faced, that you all faced?
Sure. So a new nonprofit does not have a donor base.
Of course.
So we've had to create a donor base, which we continue to build and expand. Anyone who wants to be part of our donor base, go to hcmkids.org and donate now. So that was an issue. Early on, people were somewhat hesitant because we didn't have a location yet. There are people in the community who wanted to do this before, and it hasn't happened. So there was a little bit of mistrust. So we really had to build trust with the board members who were well known, and we had to find a space. And so about a year into the project, we were able to purchase a space, and then a few months later, we were then able to share that with the public, and that helped us move even further.
When did you buy the space? It's the old Shoney's building.
It's the old Shoney's building on the West End.
Yes.
I believe that was in May of 2021.
Okay. So the group got together during pandemic 2020.
Yeah.
Yep.
January 2020, I believe.
Doing organizing, doing fundraising. And then talk about that May 2021, when you found your building. And I don't want to talk about the building here in a little bit more, but what was it like after you, all right, now Mr. Donor, Mrs. Donor, we got a building. Now I need you, right? We're in, we bought this thing for X dollars, and now we got to go. Did that improve those conversations? Did it make the conversations a little bit easier, I should say?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yes, we saw an uptick in donations once we purchased the building, and we shared that space with people. We were then able to create exhibit designs with a local artist. And that also helped, because then we could show folks, hey, we want a climbing room in this area, and we want a water table over here. And so our dreams kind of came to life.
Right. So significant milestones so far. The board, fundraising, getting a huge grant from Lowe's, a building. Any other milestones like that you want to highlight so far?
So within the first couple years, we had hundreds of people show up and volunteer. We decided that a way to show that the community needs a space like this is to offer events and offer programming that they'll see in our museum. And all of those events have been really well attended with a minimal amount of advertising. We're all volunteers.
That's right, yeah, sure.
It's a lot of social media advertising and not much else. And then so from that, we were able to get these volunteers to show up to these events, and then we were able to get people to show up. And from the first to the second year, we saw event attendees double.
Okay.
Our volunteer numbers went up. And so we just have a lot of community participation, and that has just helped us gain support in so many different ways.
Let's talk a little bit more about fundraising. How did you go about it? What how did you all start from scratch on fundraising? You said you had no base, so now it's find a base, right?
Right.
What were those meetings like? How did you go about it?
Honestly, we started with the people we know, and we started with social media. we're fortunate enough to have a board where a significant number of those people could donate $1,000 to begin with as well. So we could tell people, hey, we've donated $1,000 for this. Can you, donate as well? And that seemed to help.
Right.
After we purchased the building, we then started taking people through the building and showing them the space, and that helped too.
Okay.
Although it is far more helpful now that the building is closer to complete.
Sure, of course.
It's very dungeon-like before.
Talk about but you also did a lot of like fundraising events too.
Sure. So we've hosted several events over the last few years. Our first event we hosted was a pumpkin carving contest between chefs and surgeons. So we got people, again, who are really well liked in our community to come out and support what we were doing by carving pumpkin creations and then crowdsourcing donations. And so we were able to raise several $1,000s doing that, but in addition to that, we were able to get some larger donors as well.
Sure. What have been the most effective strategies when it comes to fundraising?
It's just finding people who are supportive of what we're doing, people who want to support early childhood education, learning through play, and folks who believe that having a space where families can learn and grow together will attract other people to come here. It will retain and sustain your employees, and so it's finding people who share similar beliefs with
Absolutely.
us.
Yeah, a lot of people fundraise, for
Yes.
their boards, their schools, their kids, sporting teams, sporting youth groups and so forth. Any other advice that you'd give them on what you've learned so far when it comes to fundraising, or fundraising from scratch, not having a quote-unquote donor base?
You just have to find people who are dedicated to your project and what you hope to accomplish. And when something doesn't work, you have to try something new.
Yeah. What hasn't worked so far?
Well.
What have you learned?
What hasn't worked?
Or what surprised you?
So snail mail does not work quite as well.
No, got it. Throw it in the trash can. I mean, yes.
And what we've really discovered with our nonprofit is we actually have two audiences. We have a donor base, and then we have the people who want to come to the Children's Museum, and there's very little overlapping. Mm-hmm. So we have to develop messaging for two separate groups of people. So I think that's really what we've learned the most, is you have to know who your donors are going to be. And if they don't overlap with who you're serving as much, they'll have to be separate messages.
Sure. How has the community responded so far to the museum during this whole process?
It's really been amazing to watch people come in and help with the project. We have retired educators who are helping, parents, grandparents. It's a ton of people who just come in and help. And every time we have 15 or 20 volunteers come in, I'm just in awe of our community and how supportive they've been. And sometimes I have to pinch myself because I can't believe it. I'm just so grateful to live in an area where folks really want to support this.
Are there any, contributions or donors or partnerships that you want to highlight right now? Anybody that's really gone above and beyond?
Sure. So we've received a handful of significant donations that have helped move our project forward. The first grant we received of a large significance was the Lowe's 100 hometowns.
Was that the $280,000?
Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so that allowed us to then go out in the community and say, hey, now we need to purchase exhibits and we need to continue raising funds to repair the building. So we were fortunate enough to receive a grant from the Wing to Wing Foundation, also American Water Charitable Foundation for our water table, the West Virginia Department of Arts, Culture, and History is helping us out with some art exhibits as well. And then we have a handful of other local businesses who've been just supportive throughout the whole process.
Sure. What that Lowe's grant, does that specifically have to go towards something?
We've spent that money on building repairs.
Okay, got it. Yeah, I mean the bill. What was your reaction like when that one came through? When you got the yes?
So it came through, and we received an email, and I initially thought, oh great, I didn't need to hear this bad news today.
Yeah.
And I opened it up, and it was a yes. And it was for the full amount that we had asked, that we'd requested, and I was just shocked. So then I closed it and I opened it up a few more times, and I sent a picture to my husband and said, oh, don't share that, we're not allowed to publicly share it.
Sure.
So I just shock.
Any advice on doing grants? Again, you're a nonprofit, you're a volunteer board. Who did the grant? Was that you who wrote it, or somebody else on your board?
So I wrote the grant.
Yeah.
I didn't have grant writing experience until I started this project. Basically, you have to follow directions, and you have to tell a story. So, I mean, as a teacher, I can tell a story and follow directions.
Sure.
So,
yeah.
And I have a great proofreader at home. That's my husband.
Yeah.
I should thank him probably.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. No, I mean, again, that's not your background, and but there's a lot of grants that are out there that people need to take advantage of.
Correct.
How'd you find out that one was even there? How'd you find out that Lowe's grant was available?
I think just through searching for grants online. I mean, there are a ton of opportunities, and there are numerous databases where you can subscribe to as well. And so I go through 2 or 3 times a month and just look for grant opportunities.
And you're still looking for them, right? I mean, obviously, go forward and all that.
Yes, we have to look for them, and we're looking for ways now to complete the project, but also sustain the museum for years to come.
That's right. So let's talk about the building now. What is the address?
So the address is 1700 Washington Avenue.
Okay. Old Shoney's building. How many places did you look at before you settled on that building?
Maybe 50.
Really?
We went to quite a few buildings.
What were you looking for?
So we were looking for a space between 8,000 to 10,000 square feet. We found one that's 5,500 square feet, but there is room to expand. We were also looking for...
Shoney's is 5,500?
Yes, it's 5,500.
Okay, got it.
We were also looking for a parking lot. We wanted the area to be accessible to the bus line. We also wanted it to be in an area of revitalization. We want to be part of something that's moving forward, and we also want to make sure that we're serving a population that otherwise wouldn't get this experience. So we are a block from Central City Elementary School. It's one of the most impoverished elementary schools in our area, and we're going to be able to serve those kids.
Sure. So how did that process, was it the board voted, this is what we're going to do? How did all that go?
Sure, there were a handful of us who looked at properties. I went and I scouted out all of them, and then when I found a property I was interested in, I would have a board member to go with me, and it got to the point where we maybe found 3 different properties, and we invited our whole board to go with us.
You narrowed it down to 3 different ones.
Probably 3 different ones. I think we saw 3 different ones as a board.
Got it. And you said there's room to expand. Talk about what opportunities are there to expand from 5,500 square feet to the 8 or 10 that you want.
Sure. So that expanding right now is not in the plan.
Of course.
But we have a huge parking lot, so there is area for us to expand that building eventually.
Sure. You mentioned Central City. Is the goal to have the area elementary schools, do field trips and all that fun stuff there?
Sure. So we would love to have a day once a week for field trips. Our space at 5,500 square feet will not allow us to be open to the public and support large field trips.
Right.
So likely on a Monday or Tuesday once a week, schools will be invited to come for field trips. What
challenges or maybe unexpected issues did you have with buying the building, securing the building, renovating the building? How's that process been?
So everything just costs a lot of money.
Especially now, right?
Yes.
Especially post-COVID. And yeah, sure.
And so sometimes we were just really shocked at the cost of things, and we just had to improvise and find funds in different places. So it's really, really the cost of different things, and we've had some delays, but we've not, it's not been terrible.
Sure.
We did have some mold, unfortunately, where we had to go down, and the building's like new now.
Right.
So.
Yeah. How long was that building empty for?
It's been empty since 2018.
Okay. So things are going to start growing, and
yes.
Yeah. Can you share, how much you've fundraised so far, how much you all have put into the building?
So we've raised over $1.5 million so far.
What was your goal?
Our goal is $2 million.
Okay.
So we're getting there.
Mm-hmm.
We're chugging along, and hopefully in the next few weeks we'll have some big announcements to make that move us a little bit closer to that goal.
Perfect.
As far as what we've spent on the building, I would say about $650,000, maybe more.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
You said stuff's expensive. Did anything like surprise you? Like, this cost what? Anything pop out like that?
It's really just. We were surprised about the building. I think sometimes when we bring people through the building and they see some of the exhibits we're purchasing, they're shocked about what they may cost, because I think sometimes people are thinking, oh, that costs $2,000 or $3,000 when maybe it costs $16,000 to $20,000.
Oh my gosh, sure.
And so that has really shocked people. But if you want something that's durable and safe for children, there are sets of people who do that, and you have to pay them.
That's right. Well, let's talk about the museum itself and what's in there, going to be in there. Talk about some of the exhibits.
Sure. So when you enter the museum, we have an area called the Discovery Zone. And within the Discovery Zone, there is a book nook, and then there's a science research station. So the book nook's a place for children to get away, have some quiet time, to kind of regroup. The science research station is an area of discovery. We'll have a microscope, we'll have magnifying glasses, different sensory materials. And both of those areas will rotate themes. So each quarter, a kid's classic favorite theme will rotate through. So we're talking dinosaurs, transportation, animals. And then across from that is an area called Curiosity Cove. And Curiosity Cove is like every engineer's dream. It will also share the same themes that will rotate. And within that space, children will be presented with a problem. They'll be able to draw the solution to the problem, either on paper or on a giant Etch-a-Sketch that's on the wall, and then they'll be able to create their solution with Legos. Within that space, we'll also have a slow motion animation station, so children can create videos with their Lego creations. And then we'll also have a Draw Alive, so children will be able to color a picture, scan it, and then it'll show up on a screen. So if we had 6 or 7 children in the space, they could each scan it, and all of their drawings and pictures will show up together.
Yeah.
In addition to that, we have a space called Sensory City. And so Sensory City is a place for children to explore all their senses. We have a water table that children will be able to explore. We have an ice table where children will be able to make slushy ice sculptures. Yeah. Kids love it. A slate wall where kids will be able to paint with water. And then we also have an AR sand table where children will be able to play in the sand, and it has sensors on it, so the image will adjust, and they'll be able to see the different layers as they're playing in that space. And then we have a dynamic floor, and within that we'll have a projector from the ceiling that will be displayed on the floor, and it'll be interactive as well. So you'll see things like kids will be able to play soccer or hockey or a different set of educational games. We also have an area called the Into the Wild Climbing Club. So that has a 2-tiered playground equipment. We're really thrilled about that space. We've talked to a lot of birth to 3 specialists who are excited to come in and explore that space. We don't have very many indoor play spaces and playgrounds in our area anymore. Most of the ones in fast food places have shut down. So it's going to be a space that's really well used. Yeah. There's a beautiful mural in that space by Sassa Wilkes that highlights animals. native to West Virginia that are either endangered or extinct. We also have an area that's called City on the Move. So it's basically a kid-sized city.
Okay.
So children will be able to go through and role play and pretend to be their grown-ups within that space. There'll be a grocery store, a restaurant, a doctor's office, and then there are 2 spaces that are still available for sponsorship. We could have a construction zone, it could be a bank, it could be City Hall, it could be a garage, a house, a nursery, a daycare, any number of things.
Sure. That's a lot of stuff for only 5,500 square feet, right?
It is. We've worked very hard to make the space inviting and enjoyable for folks, so not too much, but also include a lot of different layers of learning and fun.
Where did you do the research or get the ideas for these exhibits? Again, you're not a museum curator, so so like, how did all this? How'd y'all figure out what we need to do in here?
So my family and I visited, I would say, at least 30 children's museums or science centers, and we just took the best exhibits that we were able to pair together, and we put them in our children's museum.
Perfect. So that's the best way, right? Yes. Not reinventing the wheel here, but you're walking through the museum with a little notepad and taking pictures and all that kind of stuff.
And what we chose also had to do with how interactive the exhibit was, if the experience was repeatable. We want people to come to our space over and over and over again.
Yeah, I was going to ask, how are you going to keep it fresh? If I go once, why do I want to come next week, next month, even next year? How are you going to keep it up to date? So
every quarter we'll rotate themes, so that will get different people to come in the doors. In addition to that, we'll have different pop-up events, so people will want to participate in those events. But all of our exhibits are interactive and hands-on. So the way a 2-year-old is playing with the exhibit is not the way he or she will play with it when they're 5 or 6 or 7. So these exhibits are going to grow with them. There'll be situations where children mess something up or they can't figure it out and they have to experiment how to solve some type of problem. And the next time when they come back, they'll have a different solution to that problem.
Sure.
So it's really just, providing a space for children to explore.
Sure.
And if you do that, they're going to want to come back over and over again.
What's the overall mission of the museum?
So the overall mission for the museum is to provide a safe space for children to learn and grow through play.
Yeah.
We know that that play is the best way for children to learn.
Sure.
Play reduces stress for grown-ups and children, and we really hope that this space allows children and their grown-ups to reconnect. We also want grown-ups to act like kids and have fun.
Sure. I was going to ask, how will it be for mom and dad? My kids are getting on the older, it's 1 to 10, right? Is it was
Correct.
What it's aimed at?
Yes.
I got a 9-year-old closing in on 10, but what will mom and dad, what can they do while they're there with their kids? Some are going to be obviously more hands-on for the 2 and 3-year-olds, but
sure.
The 8 and 9-year-olds, they can go off and do their own thing. What would I do in that situation with my 9-year-old there?
So with your 9-year-old there, we'll have coffee eventually, not at first. So you could grab a coffee and sit and relax and just watch them play and interact with friends.
Yeah.
Or you can present different problems. We will have sensory guides and play guides within that space eventually. So if you wanted to interact and ask questions, you'd be able to do that with the aid of those guides.
Sure. What are some of you kind of mentioned some of this a little bit ago, but talk about it again. Short-term goals, long-term goals for the museum.
Sure. So short-term goals are to complete our fundraising efforts and open the museum by July.
Yeah.
I think we're going to be able to do it.
It's awesome. Yeah. This should come out, just a FYI for you, but this should come out probably mid-June is probably what we're looking at here in a couple of weeks. Yeah.
Okay,
yeah. So we're getting there.
And then long-term goals are just, to look at what we're doing look at how we're having an impact and how can we make that impact larger. We had an event in April called Carnival of the Animals, and within a 4-hour time, over 300 people visited the Children's Museum.
That's great.
It is wonderful.
It is.
If we keep that up, we are going to need a larger space.
Yeah.
And so it's looking at how can we expand that space. So can we add an outdoor area so that we can expand it to begin with, and then can we actually expand the building?
Yeah, and you mentioned this earlier too. Why a business might want to get involved. Something I say all the time, and I've said on this podcast more than once too, I think one of our biggest issues in this area is population decline, right?
Correct.
It's a huge problem. Huge problem. We got to get more people here, and we got to get the people that we have here to stay. And I think at Children's Museum, I don't know if it's going to draw anybody here per se, but it might keep them here.
Correct.
Right? And then maybe if I'm looking at a job at the hospital or wherever, I had Village Caregiving in here a couple weeks ago, and they're trying to recruit people from out of state. And they're giving them a tour of the area, and you show them, hey, we got a Huntington Museum of Art, we now have a Children's Museum, we've got a minor league baseball team, Marshall, it goes into all that story of that there's fun things happening here.
And I think too with our project, I think it's helpful for people who are, interviewing from other areas to realize, if you come here, you could have a great job and a great career, but you could also make a bigger impact.
Oh, absolutely.
There's room for this area to grow.
Big fish in a small pond.
Yeah. And you can get back and you can really do great things. And there are people who are willing to partner with you and work on those things to make life better for everybody.
Yeah.
And I think that's a beautiful story to tell about our community.
And how far are you away from Central City?
We're walking distance.
Yeah, and I mean, how awesome is that? If you, just like you said, you want to make that area better.
Correct.
If you can make it really walkable with stuff in between there. I mean, I love Central City and now the museum. That could be a nice little afternoon, right? Go to
It could be wonderful.
Farmers Market, go to Wild Ramp, get some lunch in Central City, then go to the museum. It's a nice little midday right there on a Saturday.
It's a wonderful, it'd be a wonderful experience for anyone, and we'll be bringing people into that area who have disposable incomes, who will want to go shopping and want to go to lunch, and we're also supporting folks in need who may be able to walk there and not anywhere else.
That's right. Absolutely.
We're just thrilled to be able to do that.
Yeah, it is. It is exciting. So future plans, it's more fundraising, get the doors open. Yeah, no, always gonna be fundraising. Let's just be real, right? Always be fundraising. Open the doors in July. What after the doors are open? More fundraising, but what else? Yeah, no,
more fundraising.
We're going to be fundraising, but yeah, of course, and that's okay. But what else after the doors are open? What's next?
So after the doors are open, we'll reassess.
Yeah, sure.
And we'll fix anything that's going wrong because this is a learning process for us. So folks will have to be patient with us as we learn.
Soft opening.
Yes.
Good.
So we'll have a soft opening, and then we'll close, and then we'll have another, probably another soft opening. Yes. So after we open and we're established, we will look at data and we'll reassess. We'll develop programs based on the data that we have, the attendance we have at different times, and our funding.
Sure. Will you have paid staff?
We will have paid staff. We are hiring an executive director very soon, so that should be announced in June. Probably by the time you air this podcast, that will be announced, and then eventually we'll hire hourly staff as well.
Yeah. How many staff members will you have to have?
So that's a great question. We'll need at least 3 to 5 part-time staff. And hopefully over time we'll be able to hire an assistant director too, but that might take a couple years.
Sure. Any other upcoming events or initiatives that you're excited about? I know you've mentioned a couple of events so far. Anything else on the calendar? So
we have Kids Fest coming up from June 8th to the 15th. And we're thrilled about that. Kids Fest is a community-wide celebration of children. We invite businesses, organizations, community members to help us set up events, host events, and volunteer at our events. And really it's just a fun week for kids. So we're hosting like a Taylor Swift dance party, a teddy bear clinic. Prime Engineering is helping us with an event called Engineering Around the World. We're having an ice cream tasting. There's just a handful. Actually, it's a lot. It's more than a handful.
I got it. Yes.
Of events and activities. So we're really excited to do that, and a lot of those events will happen in our building this year. So
have you received or talk about support that you've received or maybe you haven't received, but from the Huntington CVB, from the city of Huntington, from the state county commission, anything happening there that you want to share?
So we were fortunate enough to receive ARPA funding from Holly Mount and Todd Sweeney. So that really helped us it helped us get to a point where we could hire an architect and we could do some of the repairs that the building was needing. And that funding and that support allowed us to, again, apply for more grants, which allowed us to receive more support. And the county commission has also been very, very supportive, and they supplied us with some ARPA funding as well.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah. And then again, once the doors are open, I think the CVB would get involved too, right, to share the story of what's going on.
Sure, and they've been great sharing our stories and the information that we have, and we'll take all the support we can.
That's right. Yeah.
So.
Yes. What's been, and I'd like to do this podcast again next year. Let's put on the calendar next May of 2025. Let's do this again.
Sure.
And talk about the first year, because it's going to be a totally different episode if we do this again next year. But what's been the most rewarding? You've said a lot of positive things so far, but what's been the most rewarding part for you personally so far?
I think for me, the most rewarding part of this project is seeing our volunteers interact with children. It's watching people from our community with all different levels of expertise sitting with 2, 3, and 4-year-olds and sharing it with them. How great is it that engineers from Prime Engineering are offering their time to share what they do professionally with 4-year-olds? How great is it that nurses and doctors are sitting with children and they're checking their teddy bears' temperatures and sewing them back up and making children comfortable to go to the hospital or their doctor's visits or want to grow up and become doctors.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's really been watching our community interact and show up for our kids, and that's what we have to do.
And not everybody knows about this yet, right? I mean, it's
correct.
Yeah. So for people that don't know, how can they get involved with the museum? Maybe I can't donate money. I want to donate money. Where can I do it? Or I want to donate my time. How can I do it? How can people get involved?
So people can go to hcmkids.org. And on our website, there's a space to donate money, and there's also an area where they can sign up to volunteer.
Yeah, great.
So,
will there be what's the cost going to be to attend the museum? Are there going to be memberships and all that? What's the pricing structure?
So it will cost $10 a person to attend the museum. We will have annual family passes. Those are likely to cost about $125. We also have a program called Museums for All. Museums for All is a national initiative to allow people who are facing economic hardship to have access to museums. So anyone who has a WIC or SNAP benefits will be able to enter the museum for $2 a person if they show their ETB or their WIC card at the entrance.
Yeah, sure. An opening date, July. Do we have one yet, or
we don't have one yet?
It's okay. That's okay. Anything else you'd like to share? Anything else I missed that you want to add?
The community has done a great job creating this, and I know that our community is going to come together to help us sustain the museum through volunteerism and donations. But it is really, really important that everyone knows this is a nonprofit. No. So the benefits are going to children. So people who are able to support this and interested in doing so, should look at supporting it long term and annually.
Yeah, sure. And it's amazing. I mean, it seems like yesterday the idea and the Facebook page and whatever was just kind of popping up, and now, holy cow, you got a museum ready to go.
I know, it's so exciting.
Yes.
And that's our episode. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this podcast, please like, subscribe, share, and even leave us a 5-star review. Season 2 of In Your Business is presented by Moses Auto Mall of Huntington, MosesMeansMore.com, powered by the Huntington Regional Chamber of Commerce and Kindred Communications.